right, dude.
Legit.
You like it? I could see you dancing back there behind the.
And the Bills scored a touchdown.
I saw you get happy for a second. I'm like, Bills must have scored.
So, quick little rabbit hole story. I taught Emery tonight how to say touchdown, and she threw her hands up in the air. It was like, touchdown! So my 15-month-old can say touchdown while running through the house. It was adorable.
Well, yeah, that's the first time we've ever aired that before, and obviously it has some critiquing to do, but it's kind of cool way to help showcase our sponsors. But dude, pretty cool podcast today, Mr. Wes Logan. We're gonna get on here in a second, but if anybody sees Andy go crazy mid podcast, it's because Bills are playing the Chiefs.
It's 23-17 at the moment. Just need to stop and we can tie it or take the lead.
I wouldn't bet on stopping Patty Mahomes.
Oh, they've actually played him really well, except for Clyde Edwards-Helaire has like 240 yards rushing. They can't stop the run. Yeah, it's brutal. Ready to cry.
Is White still hurt for the Bills?
No, he's playing.
He's playing? Okay, cool.
He's playing. So, yeah.
Well, enough Bills talk, because I can only handle the Bills for so long. But...
Ready to lose this weekend?
We'll see. Hopefully the weather shapes out for us, but we'll talk a little bit about that. In the end, we'll talk more about the Douglas Derby this weekend. But without further ado, let's get him on here, Mr. Wes Logan. What's going on, man?
Oh man, not a whole lot. How y'all doing?
Doing
good. Hanging in there. I don't know if you saw me celebrate there, but the Bills scored a touchdown, so I'm pretty thrilled about that.
I'm with you. I don't watch much pro, but I watch Alabama play, and I mean, I'm right there. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah. Well, Alabama was in a weird twist. Last week with Nick Saban testing positive and then negative twice in 2 days.
Yeah,
that was weird.
I think they made him test. I know he tested the positive, and they thought it was a false positive, or however they say it. And then I think he had to take 3 more and get negative on all 3. I think he took one Saturday morning and got the 3rd negative, which is just crazy.
Makes me wonder how many asymptomatic people are actually false positives across the country.
Right. Yep, for sure.
Very confusing.
It's a weird situation for sure.
Yeah. If he's kind of like if not there already, but if on his way to that demographic that's being, being afflicted by it.
Oh yeah. I think
he's very scary.
I think he's mid-60s for sure. So I mean, that's well on your way to being. I mean, your body starts breaking down at some point. I would imagine, regardless of how good your health is.
Right.
I feel like mine's breaking down right now.
Oh, I'm sure. So take us back the last couple of weeks here. You've pretty much fished nonstop or drove like 10 hours at a time. So how are you feeling?
I'm a little worn out. We've still got some work to do. We've got the Neely Henry Bassmaster Open this week, and then I think we have a week in between, and then the end of next week I have to leave for Lake Fort, the Toyota Texas Fest, and then that'll be our last one for the year. But I don't even know how long ago. I guess it was 3 weeks ago is when we had the Gunnersville tournament, and then we left from there, went to Santee, and then we just got done with Chickamauga. So we had to do that 3-week swing, which is, I mean, it's a good thing that Bass got us in there and got us able to finish the remaining of the season for all us with the points situation and stuff. So that's a good thing they did. They just had to cram them all in there, just how everything laid out, though.
Yeah. Right. Well, you had a really good finish at Gunnersville, dude. So congrats there. It's got to give you some confidence moving forward. Not that Chickamauga gave anybody any confidence unless you were Livesey or Mike Huff, but that seemed to be brutal for everybody. But you got to feel good going into Texas, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of stumbled, I had a good start to the year, a decent start being a rookie and stuff. I made a couple of checks. And then when we made the northern swing, I had fished up north once with FLW 2 years ago, or actually last year. And we got in that northern swing. I didn't do bad. I think I finished in the 50s every tournament, but I couldn't make an adjustment where if I'm like down south, like on one of these lakes, if the weather changes or the water changes something, I know kind of how to adjust, where I haven't had the experience and able to adjust to that stuff up there. But, we get back down here to Gunnersville and I top 10 it, and then we go to Santee and I have a train wreck of a day on day one. I know I zeroed, but I don't think I boated a bass all day. I had 9 bites, I think, and never landed one of them.
Jeez.
That's tough.
you go. I mean, like you're coming off that momentum from Garnersville. Like I lost one fish the whole tournament, which it cost me winning the tournament. But me and Frank Talley are like really, really close friends, so I'm really glad he was able to win. But you got all that momentum, and then you roll into Santee. And I had a decent practice, and they just didn't. They bit funny the first day, and then I just scrapped all of it the second day and went and caught some keepers. And then going into Chickamauga, I knew I had to catch them good because I was in a hole for the Classic. And I think I was in like mid-50s or high 50s in the points, and then ended up getting a 14th place finish there, and we moved up to 45th or 46th, and we got to be in the top 41, I think.
Yeah. You're on that bubble line.
Yeah, I'm real dang close. It depends on who all catches them at fork and stuff, the way it's going to play out. But right now, I think I'm like 7 points out of the cut, which is very manageable considering how far I was behind it after Santee.
Right. Well, sounds like you just got to go win fork and not even worry about it.
Yeah, I've never been there. So that's highly doubtful. Livesey's got a real good chance to win there again. I mean, he's a guy.
That'd be crazy.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's what they were talking about on live today. I'm sure you probably tuned in for a little bit. Actually, I don't know because you were busy practicing today on for Neely.
I watched the weigh-in. I didn't watch any of the live. I watched the weigh-in. I was keeping up with Bass Track, and I saw the clip of Mike catching that really big one this morning. I knew it was going to make it close, but then again, I also knew what Lee was on because me and him were buddies too. I mean, I knew he was around the 15 to 17 pounds. So I mean, I knew Mike was going to have to really catch him to catch him, which he almost did. But
almost, yeah.
When it's meant to be, you can't keep it from happening. I mean, and Lee got that good bite right there with a couple hours left. I mean, it is what it is.
Well, didn't they say Mike didn't he only have 3 fish on day one?
I think he had 2 that weighed. He either had 2 or 3, but I think he had like 6 or 7 pounds.
Yeah. Imagine if he had a limit. That would have been a whole different outcome.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you got all of us spread out through probably the top 20 and 30 that, I mean, if you get 2 more fish, it's a complete game changer.
Yeah. I think the coolest thing that I learned from – oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, actually, yesterday I caught 5 – the size limit on chick is 15 inches. And I caught 7 bass yesterday, like a 4 3/4 and a 2 1/2. And then I caught 5 14 3/4 inches. Oh. I actually brought one back with me because it was so close, and I checked it right before I took it to the bump board, and it was like a 2-pounder, like it was like 14 and 15, 16, and as high as it was long. And I tried like all I could to get it to go, because I knew I'd make the cut. I just had to let it go. Just let $1,000 swim away.
Oh no!
But it is what it is.
Dang.
Something that I thought was really cool that I took away from watching live with Lee was, they mentioned how a lot of the anglers that were frogging, that were obviously fishing the grass, that were fishing, the edges, they were so full of shad that's why they weren't getting as many bites. But Lee pushed back deep into the grass where there wasn't shad, but it was all bluegill brim, and that's where he was getting those bigger bites, and that was like mind-blowing to me. Yeah, and it was kind of an interesting deal how you're going to get that more aggressive bass. It was super interesting to me.
Yeah, the one thing I figured out in practice was, and I threw a frog. I like throwing a frog. That's what I do. I knew basically when I was going into the tournament, I was either going to flip like I did at Garnersville or throw a frog because I like fishing grass. I'm a grass guy. But I figured out, if you notice, if you go back and look at some of Lee's clips, yeah, he did go. I mean, he made a good point with the bluegill being up in the mats, but you got to picture it like if you're on these Tennessee River lakes or wherever these hydrilla lakes are, you've got this massive flat of grass. But if you notice, they did a real good description. They didn't do a description, but you could see it in the live camera shot. All of his bites mostly came out of, like, it would be a bright green patch surrounded by the brown hydrilla. And what that that's the cheese, what everybody calls the cheese. And you could fish, like, you would get a bite every now and then in the dead hydrilla, but wherever that little green patch was, the green patch could be as big as a kitchen table, and that's where he would get his bites. That's where I was getting my bites. And it didn't matter if it was 300 yards in the mat or if it was 20 feet inside the mat. That's where my bites were, and I think that's where his were too. I think that dead hydrilla was making – I think some of it was still hanging down under the canopy. If you can picture it, you've got the cheese mat that's just straight hollow, like it's clean as can be. And then you've got that dead hydrilla, but some of it's still hanging down under the canopy, and then bass were hiding in the dead hydrilla. When they'd see something come over the cheese, they'd eat it because they could see better. I think they could see in that gap a lot better than they could in the dead hydrilla.
Yeah. One thing that Davey mentioned, because they specifically brought – it's funny you say it because they brought up Zona called it the neon green cheese.
Yeah, it's the good stuff.
Yeah, and Davey explained how, obviously he mentioned when it's super hot in the summer, how it might not play as well as, say, right now, where you guys are experiencing cooler temps, especially in the mornings. He said that even with any sort of fluctuation of a colder temperature, for some reason, the quote unquote the cheese warms, retains heat much better than, say, that surrounding hydrilla.
Yeah,
and that's why there's that good amount of population of bass because the bait fish migrate towards warmer temps, so those bass follow. And that was something that was super cool because, I knew if you find the cheese, that's usually good, but I didn't know exactly why. And that was super interesting today.
I've actually never seen it. I've never fished chick in the fall, and I fished Gunnersville 3 or 4 times in the fall, but I've never really got on a frog bite. And Gunnersville is more of a milfoil frog bite where you go, you'll have them big, massive flats of milfoil, and the whole creek or the pocket will be that cheese mat. I've never really seen it where you have those small individual cheese places in a big mat of hydrilla, and I don't know what causes that. I don't know why that little section turned green. I'm not a biologist, but I couldn't never fix it. I don't know if it was a different type of grass or I didn't know what it was, but I know they like it. That's where your bite's going to be if you're going to get it.
Right.
I wonder if it was almost like an oxygen thing with a spring.
May have been, or it may have been. I mean, that would be something to think about. I have no something on the bottom, something. I don't know, because if it was the hydrilla turning, the whole mat would have done it. I mean, it wouldn't have been like a 2x2 square that changed colors. I mean, that's
crazy. I noticed that today.
It wasn't cheese it wasn't the milfoil cheese. It was slimy, just real. If your frog came through it, it would just get marred up on your hooks. It was weird. I don't know.
It's weird that they were there. Because usually when you get sliminess like that, it's an oxygen depletion thing. Yeah, you don't want that.
I think it was just slimy on top. I think it was just the way it was dying. It was making it slimy on top. But I think I actually weighed. I had a little bitty pocket that I found that actually is a cool. It's not a cool story because it kind of sucks. But 3 years ago, I fished the open up there in the spring, and there's a little bitty pocket up the river. And I went in there and practiced. I'll make it short. But I saw a 10, 11 pounder on the bed. I couldn't get her to bite. So I fished the first day. I caught whatever I had. Couldn't get her. Didn't see her the first day. Went in there the second day, saw her. She wouldn't bite. And I ended up making the third day. I was in 5th or 6th. And I go in there and it comes a thunderstorm. And it's storming, raining, wind blowing, blah, blah, blah. I go around and I tell my co-angler, dude, she was right over there in the pocket. It's not 15, 20 yards wide. It's a little old bitty thing. And I as soon as I turned and told him, I looked and turned that way and threw my popping frog, and she ate it. 11, 12 pounder. And I'm fighting her. And she comes around the side of the boat, and I pin her up against the side of the boat. When I do, the frog comes out. She slips out of my hand.
Oh.
But anyways, so fast forward 3 years, I went and checked that pocket in practice, and there was 4 of those cheese mats, about the size of your boat in there. And I ended up weighing, 2 the first day, 4 the second day, and 1 the third day out of there. So that's 7 fish out of there, out of that one little bitty pocket, every one of them come out of those little cheese places.
A little honey hole.
Weird.
It was I never saw it. I think that's the only reason every time I went to it, I would get a bite. And I caught a bunch of those shorts in there, but it was just, you had to run back through some stuff that was kind of sketchy, and I don't think it got any pressure.
Yeah, could be.
Super interesting. It was cool to see certain things play. And, I talked to a few guys down there, like Jacob Fouts. Obviously, he's a guide out on Chick. I was talking to him about his kind of predictions, what he saw coming. And it was interesting, especially with the live stream, seeing how people thinking that, that offshore game, like what Stetson was doing, wasn't going to play. But it certainly played for him, and it played for Pipkins, I believe he was sharing it with at one point.
Yeah. I would imagine. I don't know that Pipkins. Well, I mean, if y'all saw him, I didn't get to watch none of it, but I mean, Pipkins is an offshore guy, and he's done very well there offshore. And I know Stetson really likes that place off the bank, but I never looked. I'm not an offshore guy. I mean, if I have to be, I will. I never looked at it. I actually thought it would play more than it did. I mean, I thought Buddy Gross would catch him offshore. I mean, that's because that's his deal, and I don't know if he never just ran into him or if he. I don't know what all happened. I think he threw a frog the whole tournament. Every time I saw him, he was. But
yeah, I would have to imagine he'd know where those offshore fish are, but maybe he just thought that grass bite was. I mean, obviously it won, so he probably thought that was going to be prevalent. So he didn't.
His thinking was right. I mean, he knew what was going to win, obviously. So I mean, I guess that's why he just kept it in his hand. He just never ran into the right little water.
All right. Yeah, Mike Huff's deal was super interesting with that. It was like a 30, 40-yard stretch of bluff wall. Something completely different than the rest of his stretch. And it was super cool.
That's crazy. I mean, I know a couple guys fished some of those bluff banks. It looked like I didn't get to watch it today, but it looked like he was way up, but I don't think he was up the main rear, like because I went up.
Dayton.
He was where?
He was above Dayton.
See, I don't know. I guess he might have been right outside of Dayton because that's the only bluff that I know of. Because the further you went up there, because I went all the way to the dam, almost 2 days of practice, and it was like there was hydrilla growing out like 20 to 30 feet, just lining the banks all the way up through there. So he was I don't think he was at the dam, and he had to have been right above Dayton, which is, I mean, that's impressive because that stuff gets hammered.
Yeah. Yeah, he was working a jig very, like, painfully slow.
Yeah, I know the clip when he caught that big one. He had to have been casting it because when it jumped, I mean, it was a long way out there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he was bombing it up shallow and bringing it off that bank. Yeah, very, very slow, which is super interesting. But enough about Chickamauga. I don't want to give you any more Vietnam flashbacks.
I'm happy. I'll take place every time. I don't care if it's 1 fish, 5 fish, or 100 pounds.
Heck yeah. Well, I would like to flashback though to your first fishing story, your first bass catch. Who got you into it? You want to hear the whole story?
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be. I mean, my dad and my granddad, which would on my mom's side, which I call him my pawpaw, but we'll call him. His name's Ralph. Ralph actually got my dad into fishing when him and my mom met, and then he kind of took it from there, and then they started tournament fishing. I think around the time I was born, which would have been 94, and around, I think I was going fishing tournaments. I can't remember because I mean I was like 3 or 4, but he said he would take me with him and stuff like that, and we'd fish and stuff. I really remember fishing a tournament. I don't know about my first bass I caught. Like I mean I had to have been little. They got pictures, but I don't know if it was my first one or not. But I can remember my first tournament I fished because I was like 6 or 7, and I remember we went to Lake Jordan, which is the south end of the Coosa River, and we were fishing a trail called the Trustful Bass Anglers, it's a city right here below where I live. And I remember the guys that we fished with. We fished with Randall Tharp, we fished with Russ Lane, Matt Herring, Scott Canterbury. I mean, that was just like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 guys. There's a couple more that I'll think of in a minute, but anyways, I mean, just remember. I mean, I didn't realize who those guys were at the time, and they weren't even who they are now then. I mean, They were still, like, getting their feet up on them and stuff. But looking back at that and knowing that I fished against those guys at a young age, I mean, it's pretty special. But, yeah, I'd have to thank my dad for, getting me into tournament fishing. And me and him still tournament fish to this day when we have a chance to and when I'm home. So
that's pretty sweet. You bring up these big names in fishing, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the Bro Series article with you and Gerald Swindle on bass.
Oh yeah, that's a good little series Bass has got going for sure.
Yeah, so Andy, I don't know if you read that article or not, but essentially
I have not.
Wes and Swindle, you guys met deer hunting in Illinois.
Yeah, we actually did. My best friend, his name's Heath Hudgens. We live right here close to each other. We grew up together deer hunting and stuff. And we got a wild hare to go to. Actually, it wasn't really a wild hare. Heath's boss, he works for a heating and air company. Heath's boss has a house up in Illinois. They hunt public land all the time. So we decided to go up there with him, and come to find out, Heath's boss, him and Gerald worked together before Gerald started fishing. So we get up there and they're like, well, Gerald and Lulu's coming up to hunt. They're going to stay here and hunt on their lease they got over here. And then we're all at the bonfire, or not bonfire, kind of just like a campfire after we got out of the woods that evening, which I knew Gerald, he knew me, I mean, from fishing, and he knew I had made the elites through the opens, and it had already been announced that he was coming back to Bass away from MLF and stuff like that. So we were kind of talking and just, just kind of picking each other's brain about what we thought about the whole industry situation and stuff. And then it just kind of went from there.
That's pretty sweet. The whole story that was funny to me is you guys met hunting in Illinois, not in Alabama, but in Illinois.
like 1,500 miles away.
It's a pretty interesting deal, but he's a heck of a fisherman. He's a hard worker, and I mean, obviously you can tell with all his accolades, he's pretty successful.
Right. I think what's probably the coolest part of the article is it reinforces how important it is to not only have a mentor, but also to have a network, because behind any successful angler, there's a good network of support, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I mean, like him with Lulu and me with my girlfriend, Riley, she keeps everything together. Like I got home today. I mean, I've been on the water all day. I get home. She's got dinner. She's got the computer set up. I mean, all I've got to do is come in, eat, and, sit down and talk to y'all. I mean, it's just, you can do it because I had to do it before I met her when I was at FLW. You can do it, but it wears on you. Just a little bit of help and just the little things is what makes the biggest difference. And I mean, for them to be able to be there and do that for you, it really makes a difference. And you can see it, like a lot of the guys that are really successful in this industry, they've got people behind them, whether it be their parents or their girlfriend or their wife, whoever. You can always see that person or that group of people always there, willing to help, willing to pull their boat out, go get gas for them after a tournament so they can rig tackle. I mean, just stuff like that. It's the little things that go a long way.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's pretty sweet, dude. But congratulations, not only doing well your rookie year, but we got Fork left, but it ain't over yet. But
it's not over, and we haven't had an awful year. We've just caught a couple bad breaks, but that happens. I mean, everybody loses fish. I've just lost a couple crucial ones. I wouldn't have won anything besides the Gunnersville tournament, but it would have been the difference in coming in 55th or coming in 30th instead of 55th. Gaining that 20 points here, that 15 points there. Where right now we'd be like, wow, we're in the Classic, we're good to go. And the Classic is the biggest thing, not just for me wanting to fish it, but you get there, you get to promote your sponsors at a different event, an extra event, instead of just working for them at the booth. There's nothing wrong with working the show, but obviously you want to be on that stage and reaching out to millions of people instead of, however many set the show.
Yeah. Being on a whole, higher platform that the Classic provides.
Right.
So I know you were Central Opens AOY last year, and I believe you fished the Eastern or Central Opens in 17.
It was I think in 17 it was called the Southerns.
Southerns?
Which is I think they turned the Southerns into the Central kind of, so they're really the same.
Yeah.
Basically the same thing.
Okay. Well, what I'm curious about is, so obviously it didn't take you too long to make it in the elites, 2 tries and you're there. So congrats on that. But also I'm curious about your route, like your timeline getting, before, going to the Opens, and talk maybe a little about that, like that time when you realize, okay, this is what I want to do as a career. I'm going to try my hand at the Opens to see if I can make the elites.
It was probably, I'm going to have to say, my junior year in high school. And I played sports. I played football and baseball. And I actually had a football scholarship offer, not to nothing big, no big. I mean, it was a university, but it wasn't it was like a D3, I think, Division III. And I knew I wasn't going to take that. And I actually I was really wanting to play baseball because I wasn't that bad of a baseball player. And I actually got hurt my senior year. And the offer was still there, but it wasn't a full ride, everything paid for and stuff. And it was just to a junior college anyway. So I kind of starting my junior, which I fished all the time. Right. My baseball coach in the spring, like if we were playing somebody that we knew we were going to beat, I'd be like, Coach, I got a tournament at Neely Henry, and I could win like $10,000. I'm going to go fish if that's okay. And he's like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. So, I mean, I'm fishing a lot. And then my junior year of high school, I jump in a BFL here at Neely Henry, and I win it. And, I mean, I made like $4,000. I mean, that's great. You know, it's all you want on your home weight, you know, whatever. That's fine.
Right.
Well, roll around the next year, I decided to fish the whole schedule of the BFL, and there was another one that came to Neely, and I won it again, and I finished like, I don't know, top 10 in the points. I did good in all of them, basically traveling around. That was the first time I kind of really traveled. And then that fall of that year, I fished a federation tournament and ended up making it to the TBF National Championship on the FLW side. And then I also fished the Bass Nation side and ended up making it to the National Championship on that side. So, I mean, you kind of get the wheels turning like, hey, I can kind of catch them other places. You know, I had a lot of people not being negative towards me, but just like, oh, you can only catch them here. You know, you start going different when you leave. I mean, I'm like 19. Like, I just graduated high school. I'm in junior college getting a heat and air degree. I mean, I'm trying to make ends meet, stuff like that, like everybody else does.
Right.
But I knew stuff kept lining up. Like, God was lining stuff up. Like, I would do really good in the tournament that I needed to go to a next step, like make it to the divisional or make it to a national championship. And then it started happening where, like, man, I think I can compete, you know, on a regional level. Like, I'm not going to jump, you know, try and go to the FLW Tour Pro or whatever.
Right.
And jumping back to the regional thing, Mark Zona said a thing a long time ago that I remember. I was watching live like 3 or 4, or may have been 5 years ago, whenever it was, like when live first come out. Zona explained the thing. I don't even remember who he was talking about, but he was like, the guys that do it right are normally the ones that make it. And what he said by doing it right is basically like this whole industry is like a ladder. Like, you can't skip the rungs of the ladder. Like, you've got to be able to compete in your local level, then regional level, then national level, and then however you do on the national level is where you can compare yourself to these guys that are at the top on the elites and the other circuits that we have right now. So, I mean, that's kind of what I just tried to do. I mean, you kind of don't get too big for your britches is what we call it around here. Like, don't think just because you won a local tournament here at Neely Henry, think you can go out to Grand Lake in Oklahoma and win a dang Toyota Series tournament or something like that, an Open. So, basically, that was kind of my thought process. And then in 17, I believe in 17, I fished what was then the Costa Series and the Opens the same. Like, that was the tournaments I fished that year. And I ended up finishing, I believe, 7th in the Costa points and then 12th in the Open points that year. And I think the top 10 in points for the Costa qualified for the FLW Tour. And I didn't even know I'd qualified. Like after the last tournament was over, like, somebody called me like, dude, you're in 7th place in the points. I'm like, well, that's great. I didn't win. Like, I didn't win. So, no, dude, you qualify for the tour. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I just sat back and thought about it, and I was like, I started getting asked if I was going to fish. I was like, man, I can't afford that. Like, I have no sponsors. I have a boat payment, a truck payment, and just all that kind of stuff. But I ended up working with my uncle. He's a contractor. He builds residential homes. And I worked with him all winter. And I worked the rest of the summer because that last tournament was in the spring or like May. So my deposits had to be paid, I think, by like September or October. And I worked from that time to October. And my deposits were $8,000, and I ended up saving like $9,500, and I paid $8,000 of all my money to fish. So I have $1,500 to my name going into the FLW Tour. Like, it was pretty surreal. And then, I mean, I had no money. Like, you better catch me. So the first tournament comes up, got a check in it, got a $10,000 check. Second tournament comes up, got a $10,000. I think I got like 3 checks in a row, and I was like, man, this is easy. This ain't nothing. Well, then it fell off bad, like really quick. Like, I struggled for like 3 tournaments straight. I was out of the cup. Going into the last tournament, Lake St. Clair, I think I was in like the 60s and I had to be in top 40. And I ended up finishing 11th on St. Clair. I'd never caught a smallmouth in my life until I got up there that week. Finished 11th and jumped up to 39th in the points and made the cup. And then at the Forest Wood Cup on Lake Ouachita, I was leading going into the last day and ended up finishing – where did I finish? 7th? I finished 7th at the Colony. No, I caught 1 bass the last day. I was mad at him where I finished. But anyways, I mean, that kind of got that rolling. And then for some reason last year, like I was fishing the tour again, and I just happened to sign up for the Opens because I think what happened was I saw where they announced that the winners goes to the Classic again if you fish all of them. So I said, well, I mean, I'll just go fish them because the 18 year, they did away with the winning you're in the Classic. They went to that, I think it was a championship or something, and then that winner got to go. And I didn't really, that's why I didn't fish them that year, now that I think about it. But I ended up calling Chris Bowes. I said, hey, I want to fish all of them. I'm not a guaranteed in because I didn't fish them last year. He said, just sign up, dude. We'll get you in for sure. So last year, I ended up having a really bad year at FLW, and I had a great year on the Opens. I mean, it was like everything went right in the Opens and everything went wrong at FLW. And everybody knows I won the points, was very fortunate for that. And I knew once I had a chance to go, I mean, there was no question that's where I wanted to be at the Elites. And now we're here, and I'm really glad we're where I'm at because if we hadn't done good in the Opens, I don't know if I'd still be fishing because I don't know what I would have done. I don't know if I'd have kept fishing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. You're living your childhood.
It's really like everything that, like, you got people that work, and I'm grateful for it. I'm not taking it for granted one bit, but like you got guys that have been fishing the Opens for 15 or 20 years and they've never qualified. So for it happen that quick to me, I mean, it's just really a true blessing. I mean,
it was meant to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of all you can break it down to. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could definitely attribute it to, and going back to that article, the Bro series with you and Swindle, where Swindle says in there how, a gentleman like yourself at your age compared to someone like him and the guys back in his era when they were your age, you have a completely increase of drive and increase of determination to reach that level, and that's why you're sitting here. That's why you're on the Elite Series. It's why you're fighting to get in the Classic. I mean, that's why you're there, man. The reason I'm sure a lot of guys get unlucky for these stretches of the Opens, and Opens, people say it all the time, they're some of the hardest tournaments well in.
It's unbelievable how tough they are. I mean, you've got to deal with the locals at every tournament. I mean, as far as doing good in the tournament, and then you got guys that, I mean, there's no reason that they shouldn't be on the Elite Series. Like, they're that good a quality of fishermen. They haven't gotten the break in the tournament when they needed the bite to get the extra points or anything like that. But going back to what Swindle said about the age difference, my generation, we've got a lot more. I've got a lot of respect for those guys because the stuff that they learned and they figured out, like, they had to do it on their own. We have a lot more at our disposal, like, to learn stuff like the live, the YouTube, like stuff like this, where you can go watch and learn little tips and tricks. I mean, they didn't have that. I mean, I'm not saying he's old or any of them guys are old, but it just wasn't at their access like it is now. Like, right now, you can go Google how to tie a drop shot, and you can have 17 different videos in your face in 10 seconds, to where they had to learn what drop shot hook to use, what size weight, how to rig it, stuff like that. I mean, heck, even not too long ago, there wasn't even tungsten weights. Like, when they were punching with an 1.5 ounce weight that was 2 inches long on monofilament line. There wasn't even braided line. So I've got a lot of respect for those guys because just to how intuitive they had to be to figure all this stuff out for us to be able to know it and catch fish as good as we can. That's
true. They have had to go through a lot more adjustments than the younger generation.
Yeah, for sure.
I think a cool testament to that is Cody Huff teaching Rick Clunn how to use electronics. That's so cool. I couldn't imagine being his age, still in college, and you're teaching one of the biggest legends in the sport how to use his electronics and how to find fish.
Yeah, for sure. But if it ever comes to a tournament where you don't need electronics, I still wouldn't count Klein out. I mean, he's by far the best to ever pick up a rod and reel. I mean, not knocking Van Dam or Polnick or anything. I mean, I love all those guys, but that dude there is the real deal.
He's a bad man still. Whenever they go to the St. John's, watch out.
I'm telling you. We're going to St. John's. We were talking about it this year. They were like, who y'all think is going to win? And everybody's like, I mean, how do you not pick Rick?
Right.
Oh, man.
In the comments, we had Bucks Island asked, they said, we're glad you are where you are, Wes, but also they asked if you're excited to fish Neely this week.
I mean, I'm excited to be able to be home and fish in a tournament on a body of water I know, but I kind of wish the lake was setting up a little different. The tournament was originally scheduled in May, which would have been really good for everybody. I mean, and I would have really liked – that's when I've really done very good on that lake. But it would have just been a better tournament all around as far as fish catching and stuff. And these guys are still going to catch them, but the lake – I mean, it's a fall in the South. I mean, it's – y'all have seen it on the Elites. It's not – it's not fast and furious. I mean, it's you just grind around, get about there and get about there. But it's not good to this. I mean, it's just on the lake as a whole. I don't know, I'm just on a downhill swing or something. We've been trying to work with, Alabama Power and all the wildlife people around here trying to see if there's something wrong or if we can get a stocking program going. So I hope we can do something with that because I really think something needs to be done because we've got a really good resource with this whole Coosa River system that runs through the whole state. And, I mean, it's a good – it brings a lot of money into the towns and cities and stuff. So, I mean, the revenue it generates would pay for itself with what we would have to put out to make everything better and stuff. And I don't know. We just need to do a little work, I think, because I know a lot of guys, not just me, myself, but a lot of people that's been around these rivers for a long time that you can tell something's not right. And it's probably from the added pressure and stuff like that, and maybe it'll turn around next year, but we'll see.
Yeah. So fill me in here because Neely Henry I have very little knowledge about. Obviously, I've heard it being talked about. I've seen tournament results, but I've never really looked into the lake itself. So is it a predominant largemouth lake? Is it spotted bass, mixed? What lake?
It's going to be half and half, I would say. I mean, it's really going to be 50-50. I mean, you can win on any given day. You can win with spotted bass. You can win with largemouth. But a lot of the times you're going to win with a mixed bag. I mean, you're going to have a 4 or 5 pound largemouth, a couple 3 pound spots, and then however you're going to fill your limit out. Well, I mean, just some small keepers. Normally, a winning weight on a good year from January to June is probably 19 to 21. Just, somewhere in there, unless you have a bad weekend, bad weather situation or bad water conditions. And then you get from July into right now, and then you get your 15, 16, 17 pounds to win where, I mean, it's just like this year, I didn't get to fish a lot, but when I was home and I saw some tournament results, like in March and April, like when stuff's supposed to be happening, I mean, like biggins are biting, it's only taking like 14 or 15 to win. I mean, something's just there's not many big fish being caught. There was a tournament last weekend where a 7-pounder was caught, and I think I've heard of one more getting caught all year. It's just something's a little bit off, but I mean, the fish are still there. It's a predominantly shallow lake. I mean, there's a few offshore places, not really not like Tennessee River by no means. I mean, there's the ones I know. I mean, there's probably, as far as true, like offshore, like a ledge situation or a deep point or roadbed or something, there may be 15 or 20 at the most. And I mean, a lot of them are community holes. I mean, and they really get beat up a little bit, which the banks get beat up too, but it's just most of the time everything gets won on the bank. It stays dirty most of the year. I mean, 1.5 foot, 2 foot is really, really clear. Like if you can see 2 foot, like we don't even go fishing. Like this sucks.
Wow.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Man, I don't know what I would do with 2 foot of clarity because all of our lakes up here are like 15 to 20 foot. Just crazy.
Oh, God. That's unreal. But another thing is, I mean, a lot of those fish, I don't know exactly where y'all at exactly.
I'm in Buffalo.
I got you. So I mean, a lot of those fish. I mean, I imagine it freezes over like everything else up there.
Majority of the lakes do, because obviously I'm 30 minutes from Cayuga. I'm kind of like in the heart of the Finger Lakes up here. So like a lot of our bigger Finger Lakes, the south end will stay open, but the northern ends, because they're shallower, they'll freeze over. But for the most, this past winter was actually, we had like maybe a month of solid ice, and it was a very short winter. But for the most part, we do freeze over. Just certain bodies of water don't. So it's interesting. It varies by year.
do all of y'all's lakes, or does it? I don't know if it goes by district or county or whatever. But all y'all have like the fishing season, like when you can like start bass fishing or something. Or is
Yeah, you can explain it, Andy.
So it's actually a good question. So some of our lakes are bass fishing. You can catch them all year round on artificial, but like Lake Erie has a trophy bass season on the Great Lake portion. And as soon as you get to the Peace Bridge, it's closed. So you can catch trophy bass from November 31st through the third Saturday of June, one fish over 20 inches. So we'll have 20-inch fish tournaments, two fish team. And then from the third Saturday of June until I think it's actually third Saturday of November or November 31st, you're going to do like the 5-fish creel limit and have tournaments then. Right. But the rest of the state is artificial only, except for from the third Saturday of June through that November date. So we're getting to the end of it here. And then I think it's Jefferson County on the St. Lawrence of Lake Ontario. You can't artificial only fish there. It opens the third Saturday of June and then closes at the end of November.
Right. So that's how we're able to go up there and fish then.
Exactly.
Yeah. So those fish with, like for they don't get fished for how many months is that? 4 or 5 months or 3 months?
Yeah. No, it's 6, 7, almost so 7 months.
The pressure, like even the clear water up, like I was going to turn it back into the clear water situation. I mean, you can see a fish swimming in 8 foot of water up there. We all can pitch a wacky rig over and it'll just swim over and just swallow it like it ain't nothing. You see a fish swimming here in 2 foot of water, he won't stop till he gets to the other dam. I mean, it's just the constant. I was talking to a guy this morning at the boat ramp. He's like, man, it's tough down here. Like because he's from. It was actually Cody Honor, which he's from up there, and he's like, man, it's tough down here all the time in the fall. I was like, dude, they get fished for 12 months out of the year, 365 days out of the year. I mean, I said they just get pounded on. I said, you're not catching a fish here that hasn't been caught in the past 2 or 3 months, and that's just there's not enough fish in the lake with so many people fishing. And I mean, it's amazing to me how many fish we actually still catch as many people are fishing. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I love people fishing. That's awesome. I'm not knocking that. But it's just we're having, as anglers are having to figure out like techniques and tweaking stuff. The normal stuff just doesn't work anymore. And that's why everybody's always trying to come up with something new. And then something new will come out and it'll be like the best thing ever. And then they'll get accustomed to that. And then you got to swap it back up. And then you can go back to something that worked 15 years ago and it works again. Like it's a pretty interesting sport, honestly. And it really sets up different than any other professional league, any kind of sports league, honestly. I mean, like going, and I hate to bring it up because I said something about it on stage day 3 at Chickamauga, but the boats on that lake, like we're competing, like you don't see, like the Bills are playing right now. You don't see all the fans out there running around when they're getting ready to line up or out there, having their tailgate and stuff in front of everybody. They've got their playing field. It's theirs. They've got this team, that team. They're going to play whoever. You got to beat them people, and that's what you got to do. Well, we got to go out there and catch these fish, but we've got local boats. We've got party boats. We've got people running through a pontoon boat running through our grass mat at Gunnersville. But I mean, we just have all those, things we have to deal with. It's open to the public. We can't complain about. I'm not complaining about. I'm just putting it into perspective for people that may not know. Like it's just there's a lot of variables that are out of our control that determine each tournament, which is really cool about the whole situation. And that's why I really love it. You never know what's going to happen.
Right.
Like you go out there and do your job and like Paul and it's got to say and control what you can control and then let everything else fall into place. But it's just different. Like a baseball player, he's got to go out there and hit the ball. Like it's just pitcher's going to throw it to him. He's got to hit it. If it was as easy as going out there and casting out there and reeling one in, everybody would do it.
Right.
Yeah, it's something that Andy and I have liked to bring up all the time too, because it's entirely different than any other sport. And we've had guys on here that, like yourself, are very good at other sports like baseball or football, and they say, but it's just something about fishing, and it's that extra variable, extra maybe 2 or 3 variables that you have to overcome and have to deal with to try to arrange your strategy to beat that out, not just beating your opponent or just being able to hit the ball. It's
Yeah.
a whole different game, and it takes a lot more to it, and it's so much more challenging, which is why we are so drawn to it.
Yeah, and a lot of that, those variables you talk about, I mean, they're completely out of your control. Like nothing you do is going to take care of it. You can work, practice as hard as you want, rig your tackle as perfect as you can, and it's just out of your control. It's
you can't change the weather.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is my least favorite variable because it seems like every tournament that I've had this year, it said it'll blow like 5 to 8 southwest, and it blows 40 out of the north.
Out of the north,
so it's just like what is going on?
I thought you mentioned the weather. I think the weatherman is like the best job to have. You can literally be wrong all the time, all the time. It's just the weather. They can't predict the weather.
Yeah.
Are they getting paid $100,000 or however much they get paid to do it? I mean, we can predict the weather because it's either going to rain. Is it going to rain? It might.
It might.
It might.
It's like the easy. If you don't know what's going to happen, you just say 50% of everything.
And you're right all the time.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, imagine a heart surgeon being 50% right or the time. He probably didn't have his job too long.
That's why he's a heart surgeon.
If a weatherman is 50% right most of the time, he's like one of the best ever.
Yeah.
Good grief. Well, Wes, I have a couple more questions for you. Well, we have one question that we're gonna wrap things up with here soon. But talking about your season, I have a question. If when looking back on it, obviously I know you still have fork left, but throughout the majority of the season, what would you say obviously is your strength? But also through the season, have you noticed a weakness that you want to improve on or work on for next season?
My strength is how I grew up fishing. As far as from a fishing standpoint, shallow water, power fishing. If there's a shallow bite going on that's going to compete in the tournament, I feel like I have a good shot to do very well in that tournament. Now, going back on that, in my opinion, there's always shallow fish to be caught on a lake, always 100% any time of the year. But
residents,
yes, there's times where those fish will not compete with something else. Like you're going to go catch some, that's fine, but you might be catching 10 pounds on the bank and they're catching 25 offshore. Like just situations like that's where that strength kind of hurts me. And going back on that, my weakness is going to be, I wouldn't say offshore fishing, but being able to trust my gut fishing offshore. Like I can go back to the Lake Eufaula tournament, which I fished Eufaula a lot, and I knew there was a shallow bite going on, but I knew the tournament would be won 100% out of brush piles, and I knew the section of the lake it was going to be won in. Like I had the brush piles marked. I'd got some bites down there, but I'd gotten more bites on the bank, and I knew I was more comfortable on the bank. Well, right. Me and Scott Canterbury roomed together, and I know where he was catching them. I know where Buddy Gross caught them, and literally all my waypoints are in that 3-mile stretch. And I ended up going down there on day 3, and I caught like 16 or 17 pounds in 2 hours. Like it was just, if I'd have just knew what I needed to, done what I needed to do, like I knew in my head, like it's going to be won that way, instead of doing the safe thing and finishing in the 20s or however, I think I finished high 20s. You could have finished in the top 10. Like just trusting my gut when I knew something was going on. That's where I need to start, working on more. Like even up north, like I knew, like in St. Lawrence, I knew the area it was going to go down at. I knew how they were going to catch them, and it just, I get into practice and being I think it's got a lot to do with being a rookie. I'm worried about. I feel like I'm in a hurry in practice. Like I gotta find something to survive, so I don't bomb, so I don't give the stuff that I think. Because when you're trying to look for a winning pattern or a top 10 pattern, it's not going to be easy to find, because if it was, everybody would do it and it wouldn't be a top 10 deal. So right. I feel like I've got to give the stuff that I think is going to be really a contender in the tournament more time, which is what I did at Gunnersville. It's what I did at Chickamauga. I knew Gunnersville would have a shot to be one flipping, and I knew Chickamauga had a shot to be one on the frog. And that's kind of what I stuck with. And you just find and get those little areas. And then as the tournament progresses, you start breaking those areas down into exactly what times you need to be there, why they're there, where they're set up, if they're coming and going, stuff like that. that's the biggest deal that I think a lot of people don't understand with like us is, being or not, I wouldn't say professional, but being on the Elite Series. I'm not saying we're better than anybody else, but you have to figure stuff like that out every single day. Like just because you figured it out on the first day of practice, it's probably not going to work the first day of the tournament. Like the fish are still there most of the time. You just got to make adjustments, sometimes by the hour. And I mean, that's really where you see the experience come in for guys that win a lot and have been there a long time, and somebody who like me who's just kind of, even though I've fished, 2 or 3 years, way up, it's still being over here with these guys and going back on these guys. Like, I know there's a little bit of talk about the elites not being the elites anymore, but just because these guys don't have the name don't mean they can't catch them. Like, we pull up to a lake, they're going to figure everything there is to figure out. They're not going to miss anything. Like, they find it. It's pretty incredible, and not taking anything away from the other guys that are at MLF. I mean, they are the best in the world, but these guys aren't far behind. Like, the guys I'm fishing against catch them every single day. Like, right. The fact that the weights look that bad at Chickamauga, I mean, that's how bad that place is. Because if they were there biting, somebody would have found them, like, really good.
Right, without a doubt. Yeah, that many guys with that much talent. Yeah, no ground was missed. That is for darn sure. But cool. Andy, you got anything left for Wes before we hit him with our last question?
So you're an Alabama guy. So which would you rather fish for now that you've fished a couple smallmouth derbies? Largies, spots, or smallies?
Largemouth.
Largemouth? I figured you were going there.
I hate a dang smallmouth with everything. I love fishing for them. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's fun. They fight, they pull, they bite. But in a tournament situation, finding the quality to be able to compete against, like the Johnstons and a Fighter and, all the northern guys who have that little bit of, we need to go, we need to be right here. There's 4.5, 5 pounders here, not 3.5, 3 3/4. Like, that's the interesting thing about all those tournaments. Like, everybody's going to catch fish. Like, it's a fun tournament to watch. It's a fun live show. Everybody gets bit. It's a fun practice. You've got to be able to train. And me and Dave Mercer were talking about it at Gunnersville. He was like, man, you had a little rough go. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. He said the biggest thing is you've got to be able to tell yourself, if you're sitting there catching 15 or 16 pounds, dude, I got to go. Like, it's not happening here. You've got to just abandon all that. Like, it doesn't happen. And that's just the thing you got to learn by going up there. But, it's all decision making. And I'm not knocking the smallmouth. I don't want the smallmouth.
Oh, you're fine. You can knock them all you want, because Bailey makes fun of me. We fished a smallmouth derby together, and I tried to catch green ones. Yeah. So yeah. I was like, I want to go catch some big old greenheads.
I'm telling you, I'm a bit like up there up north. I mean, them fish, the largemouth. I mean, they're so dumb. Like, they don't have a clue. Like, they don't get fish. Like, you go throw a frog, and you could miss a lily pad or a mat by 10 foot, and he's going to run out from under it and go over there and eat it.
You see the V coming from a mile away.
Yeah. Like, where I just came from, you could throw your frog perfectly. I mean, if you're not working it like exactly like he wants it, he's like, I ain't biting that one.
Look at those old rubber legs.
Yeah. I've seen 10 of those already this morning. I'm not going to try that again.
It was kind of cool, the live show, when they showed a lot of the mats down a stretch, and it's just lines.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean,
bombed.
Yeah. Like, we got there for that first morning of practice, and it wasn't bad. Like, I mean, you could see where people had been fishing a little bit, but it's like by the second day of the tournament, like, people started following us and, like, seeing that we were all throwing frogs, and, like, I knew where my lines were when I'd leave them at. Like, because I was coming from a certain direction, and I'd pull up, and they'd be all crossing mine. I'm like, well, somebody hit this one too.
You see, like, little blow-up holes here and there. You're just like, dang it.
I never saw many drag marks, though. Like, you could, like, I think people would, like, see the blow-up hole and, like, throw at the hole. But, I never really saw – the only drag marks I saw were mine, which there wasn't very many of those. But, I mean, there were a few. And you'd see, like, where they'd seen mine and they'd just crisscross it. I mean, it was just, like, barely a map there even more. Like,
it's funny. Like, that's one of my favorite things to do when I do go frog fishing is I try to find the areas where there are, like, those jet trails from the frog. Because I'm like, this is a good area. And then all of a sudden you catch a couple and you're like, oh, all right, I'm going to hunker down here.
Yeah,
and I think And I'm just like, I don't like fishing where other people have fished, but when it's frog time, you almost have to.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed about Chick, and I mean for anybody listening, or I mean you talk on the frog deal, like, and you might not have to worry about it up north a lot, but like down here, those fish know when your boat gets close, when they've had that much pressure on them. And one thing I noticed, like, and it didn't really, going back to the fishing boats on my areas and stuff, I didn't really mind that they were fishing because, I mean, everybody fishes. If the stuff looked good, I mean, that's where they were supposed to be. But I couldn't go in there and fish with them because I knew how loud they were being. Like, they were, like, right up in the mat. I mean, I knew they weren't going to catch any, but I knew I wasn't going to catch any if I went in there either because they had spooked them. Like, I would literally have to – and I know Lee was doing it too. Lee would take his boat and go in that mat. I would go up to the edge of mine and put my talons down and just sit there. Like, I would literally just roll up and just stand there for like 10 minutes or just sit there, let everything calm down, let the waves go away, and then start fishing. Like, you couldn't just roll up there and start firing. Like, I honestly believe the fish knew I was there, or any boat was there. Like, they just had that much pressure on them. And it seemed like the longer I was there and as quiet as I turned my depth finders off, like I turned everything off, and I just sit there, and all of a sudden you'd start hearing them popping. Like a brand would pop over here, and you'd hear one like suck under a mat. It'd take about 15 or 20 minutes every time. I mean, and that's what was so grueling about the days is, and it was so stressful on us. Heck, dude, you'd fish for 45 or an hour just sitting there as slow as you could, and you'd finally get a bite. Like, it was just, it wasn't like run around and, I ran into one here and I ran into one there. Like, it's just grueling, like just painstakingly slow.
Yeah. That's interesting because I always do that personally, at least I'm still stuck in the kayak, but even so, if I'm fishing grass, I always turn the graph off.
Yeah, it's
it's
shallow. Like here at Neely Henry, like I'll turn, which I know where I'm at. Fortunately on this place, but I'll turn all my stuff off. I'll keep my map on if I have to, like if I'm somewhere I don't know. But I don't, like if I don't need to know how deep it is, like there's no sense in having that clicking going on because any little thing, I mean, they can feel that clicking. I mean, it may not affect them all the time, but they know something's there anyway.
Mm-hmm. I like doing it when I dock fish. Like on a lake that I know, I'll turn it off if it's a good section of docks just to take that clicking away.
Right.
At least put it in standby mode so it's not running.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I do. Yes. I mean, standby is perfect, but I mean just as me as growing up a shallow water fisherman. I mean, you learn you've got to be as stealthy, as quiet as possible. I mean, and it just you'll see the results. I mean, it may not show immediately, but it'll get you an extra bite or two. Which I mean, sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah. Especially when it's 5 to 7 bites a day.
You ain't lying.
Yeah. Yeah, Wes, I don't know if you can see the screen, but Brandon asked if you have any experience on Lake Fork.
I've never been to Lake Fork. I've been to Rayburn and Toledo Bend, and I know Fork it's not too far. I think it's like 2 hours, like northwest from Rayburn. I mean, I'm sure they set up similar because they've all got standing timber, and I mean, they're trophy catch lakes. They've been stocked by Texas Wildlife and stuff like that. And I know Texas is also, not Texas, Lake Fork is a big, I think it's one of like the biggest tourist attraction lakes in the country. Mm-hmm. So it gets a lot of pressure day in and day out. You've got all the guide services and stuff. And I think it gets a little bit tougher than Rayburn or Toledo does just because it's a lot smaller. And I'm sure it's got a bazillion bass in it. And if I had to take a educated guess on the tournament, I'm going to say it's probably be one offshore, but there will be a lot of fish caught on the bank. I don't know if the size will be on the bank. The bigger fish may still be offshore. And I say offshore, I'm like maybe not on a hump or something, but like out in the standing timber. Like anytime you can figure out a standing timber bite, you're going to blow the tournament away because the biggest bass in the lake live in the standing timber, and that's where they live. That's how they get so big. But I mean, we're probably going to go power fish and fish on the bank, fish shallow, and see how good of a finish we can get. I don't think we can win on the bank. I mean, we might if you catch 2 10-pounders, you might, which is possible. But
anywhere in Texas, that's possible. Not just Fork, so
no doubt.
Unless it's Lake Lewisville.
Yeah,
if you're going to catch 2 10-pounders there.
And actually, I think Van Dam caught like a 12-pounder there at the Elite tournament one time, like in 2009 or something. But It's not a very good lake, I don't think. I mean, it's Texas. It's got big ones in it, but I don't think that's a very good lake at all.
They probably don't stock it quite like they do the other ones.
Probably not. It probably doesn't generate the like the revenue or whatever. Or they may not pay for. I mean, I don't know how all that stuff works.
All right.
Texas has got that stocking program figured out because that's pretty impressive. Because we were at Rayburn for that open in September, and I mean it's tough, like it's awful, and it was still taking some like major weight to win. And I mean we caught a good many fish, and I mean it's September, it's supposed to be the toughest time of the year, and it wasn't easy, but you could tell that lake had been taken care of, and it's got a lot of fish in it.
Right.
It's good.
Yeah, I remember because there's the Kayak National Championship that's in conjunction with your guys' Classic in March.
Mm-hmm.
And they still have yet to announce the location for it. And all on the forums of people discussing what they could be, and all they're saying is, as long as it's not Louisville, as long as it's not Louisville.
Yeah. I think when they, I think our last open is at Louisville, and I think when we were going there in April, it was going to be as good as it could be, like the best time to be able to go. And now that, I mean, it's going to be going the end of November. It may be okay if it'll get cold, but I don't know how cold it gets in, eastern wherever it's at in Texas.
Northern. It's above DFW.
I feel like it doesn't get cold there until like end of December, January. I feel like you're probably going to still have like 60, 70 degree high days. So it's not going to be like frigid.
I think we're kind of like where I'm at, like Northern Alabama's kind of like on the same, I don't even know the line, like the weather line as far as up north. He went black. There he is.
He's ditching out on us. He's upset over his Bills.
I was about to say, did they score?
No, they got their butts kicked. Oh, yeah, he's mad, so he left because we're making fun of the Bills.
I mean, surely to God, he didn't think that they were going to beat Kansas City.
Yeah, right. You can't beat Patty Mahomes. Come on, man. But
he did last year, or not many people did.
Yeah, there he goes. He's coming back in the queue right here. We know you're grumpy, dude.
Every single time my wife gets a FaceTime.
That's too funny.
And it's always her mom. Always.
Hey, we can let her join in, dude. We're open to anybody.
Yeah, Amanda's mom can totally join the live stream.
No doubt.
I think they're in Vermont right now. It snowed up there over the weekend.
It snowed.
Yeah, like right outside of Lake Champlain.
It was 28 degrees this morning. Not this morning, 2 mornings ago.
Yeah, Saturday morning. I was out on Erie, and it was 37 when we ran out.
Day 2 at Chickamauga, day 2 morning, when I got in my truck, it was 32 degrees, and that was like my lids were almost froze shut. I was like, I wonder if they're going to bite a frog this morning. We got masks crossed over. Like, I'm looking out, and it's like there's a cut bean field, and I'm like, man, I could kill a deer out there. Like, it's all frozen. I run to my first place, and I didn't bring any gloves. Like, my hands are frozen. I'm like, I'm literally about to start throwing a frog, and it's 10 degrees outside. And, like, my third cast, like a 2.5 pounder, destroys it. And I'm like, all right, we're good. We're good.
It's kind of funny how stuff like that happens.
It's great.
Man. I remember. Go ahead.
No, the sun hadn't even come up. I mean, it's literally like ain't nothing moving. It's freezing, and I mean, it just demolished. I'm like, well, and the water temperature hadn't changed. Like it was exactly the same as it had been all week. So I mean, they don't know that it's. I mean, they feel what we were all talking about at Blast Off. They feel they're going to feel the high pressure more than they are the cold weather. I mean, that's the problem.
But it's funny when you pull them out of the water, they can tell it's cold out because all of a sudden their tail just like folds up on them. They
get real still real quick. I'm not in the water no more.
So I think the coldest day I have bass fished was just after Christmas last year. I got out on Erie, and it was like a rain drizzly day. When we launched, it was snowing. It was 24 degrees, and when we got off the water, it was 34 and raining.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, the water temp was 37 degrees, and we caught about 80 fish.
I was about to say they were probably chewing.
It actually was a weird bite. You would have thought they were like just mashing it. It was the softest bite, and it was slick calm. So the only way you could get them to eat was to drop on them with the drop shot. And they were so tight to the bottom that you didn't even see them on your graph unless you zoomed all the way in, and you would just see like a tiny little raise. And you drop on them, and all of a sudden, yep, and you drop on them, and that raise would come up like a half inch, and all of a sudden your line would just go slightly slack. You're like, oh, okay.
Oh, he got it.
It was just dumb, but they're all 4-pounders.
Golly, that's little ones up there.
That time of year, you don't catch too many giants because they disappear. But 3 weeks earlier, people were catching like 27, 28 pounds for 5.
Oh, that's like you catch 27 pounds smaller, like that's a decent day, ball.
It's like, oh, it's funny. Me and Bailey have a tournament this weekend against each other, and I'm like, it's a 2-day event. And I'm like, oh, it's going to take like 26 to 28 a day probably to win. And it's not even good yet. Like, they're still spread out. They're not bunched up. I went out Saturday morning with a buddy, and I had 25 and a half in 45 minutes.
Does Bailey get to go with this buddy?
No, he's actually fishing with another buddy.
Oh, man.
Well, although we might end up fishing together because of all the coronavirus travel restrictions. So we'll see if our partners can even come up.
I hope they can, because I really do not want to fish with Andy.
I wouldn't want to fish with me either.
Yeah.
I'd want to fish if you know where 25 and a half pounds were.
Yeah, right.
Might be good for about 30th.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Andy, do you have anything else for Wes before we hit him?
Hit him with the grand slam.
All right. Well, Wes, we don't want to keep you any longer, so we're going to hit you with the question.
Let you sleep.
Yeah. I need sleep.
But so our last question for you is: if you were to invite any 3 people, whether it's 400 years ago or they're still alive right now, they don't have to be the fishing industry. What 3 people would you invite, sit down, have steak and a beer, and pick their brain?
I wasn't expecting that question.
And we weren't going to tell you. We don't tell you.
Let's see. To pick
the only people. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. You go.
I was going to say, even people who have listened to the podcast don't expect us to ask it, because I don't think there's like a rhyme or reason to why we do it yet. It just comes.
It's just fun. Yeah. Fun for us.
Well, I got to pick one guy because I've had a bunch of steaks and beers with him and picked his brain about a lot. So the one guy is going to be Scott Canterbury, because I'm going to get him to cook the steak to begin with, and he's going to bring the beer.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Steak.
The second one would probably be one dude that I'm not close with, like I haven't really talked to a lot, and he fishes right now, and my third one will be somebody that's not fishing right now. But I'd like to pick Jason Christie's brain, because me and him like fish really, really similar, but he's a lot better at it than I am. And like I don't know. He's a cool dude. Like he freaking catches them like all the time. Shallow.
Always.
Him and John Cox are like really similar. It's like they're gonna catch them on the bank everywhere they go. Like, and that's just. I'd like to like just know his mindset, like how he goes into a tournament, like knowing that's how he's gonna fish, and just having that confidence to do it. When you know, like going into it, that it should get won this way or done very, very well doing this, but you go the opposite end of the spectrum. I got to figure out this third pick.
I'm trying to remember real quick.
You better ask him quick before you're competing against him.
Yeah, he's coming.
I think he's like top 3 or top 4 in each division or something. He's just on fire.
I think he's like in the overall. I think he's got like 100-point lead.
Just insane.
Me and Atkins I talked to Justin Atkins a lot, and we were talking about that. He's like, dude, Christie's like top 10 3 of these already. I said, well, he's probably fixing the top 10 this one too, so he's going to have like a 150-point lead.
Just insane.
But yeah, he's coming for sure.
I'm trying to remember what tournament it was. I want to say it was, I think Dardanelle, and it blew real hard one of the days. And he was throwing a frog in like pencil reeds and like 2-foot chop and still blasting him.
Sam Rayburn.
Yeah, that's it. Sam Rayburn.
When Paul, he was catching them in I think they call it hay grass.
Yeah.
I remember there was like 2-foot rollers in the grass. And they're like blowing it out of the water. Like, it's just stupid.
It's like, what is going on? That nobody would ever throw a frog in that situation. There's Jason Christie just throwing this big white frog and blasting them.
Welling on them. Like, it's just stupid. Somebody I picked their brain. Probably Ray Scott, if I had to. I mean, just to know the whole, history of how it all got started and stuff like that. I mean, that might be a cliche answer, but I mean, that'd be pretty. I mean, just to have cool. Sit down, just know how, like, what his thought process was going to it, like how he even thought it might would work, like to have the, the thought process, like, hey, we're going to do it this way, this way, and this way. And really, a lot of the stuff that he like put forth at the beginning, I mean, we still do it to this day. Like, some of the stuff's changed, but the basic principle of it, I mean, is still, I mean, what they come up with. I mean, and he was, one of the main leaders.
Perfect foundation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long it took him to like really devise the plan and stuff, but I mean, it's pretty rock solid.
Right. Yeah, I like that 3. That's a power 3.
Yeah. kind of a
Christie and Ray Scott. That is a power trio right there.
I'll be a heck of a dinner, I think.
Yeah, all 4 at the table. Let's go. Like, I'd record that conversation.
We'd have to get Jason Christie to bring some like old Indian medicine or something. Like, some sweet concoction or something.
That's too funny.
That dang Cherokee Indian privilege. I think that's why he's able to catch those bass so shallow. Like, they're like, all right, I gotta go. I'm going to bite his lure.
It's got like that good mojo.
Oh yeah, like Rick Klein got that intuition, just
right,
crazy.
That's funny. Well, Wes, we want to say thank you for taking the time out of your night to hop on the show. We really appreciate it, and we wish you luck with practice this week and the tournament this weekend. Hope you go smash them, dude.
We're going to do our best. I mean, like I said, I'm just happy to be fishing. It just feels good to be fishing around the house, and I mean, it's still stressful, but it's not quite as bad as being in the Elite or something like that. So it's good to fish a tournament like this. Kind of get back to your roots and stuff, and just go have fun. But we're going to do what we can. We appreciate you letting us be on here. I know it was kind of a little mixed up at the beginning, and then I was busy.
It happens.
Life, man.
I'm fishing or doing something. I don't even know. I don't know. I'm still in the whirlwind, and it's not over yet. It's still wide open.
Yeah,
it's crazy how long this whole season has played out. I'm really curious to see the Elite schedule when it comes out. So I wonder if they're going to push it back into the fall next year.
I heard that they're going to try and release it by the end of October, so that would be the end of next week. Yeah. I would imagine it would really shock me if they take us into the fall again, just because of how much strain it's put on. Not really just us as anglers, but like the whole situation, like our boat situation. Because normally we're done with our boat. We don't even have our boat right now.
Yeah.
Like everybody's getting our boats built right now, but a lot of people, like in the situation I'm in, I can't get my boat until I pay for this one, which I don't pay for it, but it has to be sold, but I can't sell it because I still got to have it. And then it's just a weird situation. So, I mean, I'm sure we'll fish like into September and October maybe, but not this late just because of all the stuff that goes into it.
I wonder if they'll push back the start. Like normally there's like that late January, early February tournament. I wonder if they'll do it like into March or something. Because when's the Classic? Middle of March?
It should be the middle or to the end. So, I mean, I bet we have at least one before the Classic. I know.
So I'm thinking of like first week of March might be your first Derby, just to kind of give everybody that time.
Right. I mean, as much time as we can get would be the best. I mean, for all of us, honestly. I mean, them, us, just the whole situation.
Right.
Yeah, I personally would like to see some fall Northern Derbies. Those would have been fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it'd be interesting for sure. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, the weights would probably be really good, I would imagine, because I mean that's when they get a lot heavier. Because when we were at St. Clair, those fish were bad, poor, like skinny, like bad. They didn't look very good.
No.
Yeah, 3 weeks later, they would have been fat.
That's incredible how fast that happens. I mean, it's.
Oh, they just chow. When they're ready to chow, they chow.
And they've got the food to eat for sure.
Oh,
without a doubt.
Plentiful.
Quite the smorgasbord of food to eat.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Wes, we appreciate your time, man. We'll let you go get ready for tomorrow and get some rest before you pass out on us here. But,
no, I appreciate it, guys. Just holler at me if you ever want to do anything again or have any questions. I'll be happy.
You're always
welcome on.
So, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, have a good night. Best of luck.
See you, man.
See ya.
That was a blast, dude.
All I keep thinking about is how I can't wait to beat you this weekend.
Oh, get out of here. We're going to talk all this trash, and then we're going to wind up fishing together. Right, and I'm still going to track you. We're still going to have a side bet who catches more fish. But
I just hope my graphs. I hope I got my sonar hooked up properly on the back.
That would
I hope I got the angle right on the 3-to-1.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, but dude, that was super interesting talking chick with him and talking, what went down and different things with the grass. I probably learned more watching this live than I think I have in the past probably 3 seasons.
Oh, there's so much. If you pay really close attention to live, there's so much information out there just by watching, not by listening to what they're saying or what they're doing, just by watching what they're looking at. If you truly are a tournament angler, you can look at what they're fishing and actually almost dissect it. So it actually makes it tougher on them in the long run because with that live, it's teaching people, if they know what they're doing or looking at, so much more.
Right. Yeah, I know, obviously they probably didn't like it being, Chickamauga being that difficult, but as someone like us where we're watching, we were able to kind of receive a lot of good information. And one of the things I picked up on, and I don't think people would be pissed that I pointed it out, but at Santee Cooper with Polinick, the way he was working that swim bait, a lot of, not every cast, but every other cast, you'd kill it right at the boat, just open his bail and let that swim bait go down. And it's super interesting when you think about it because I noticed him do it. And they didn't bring it up, though. But I think what he does is, in case there's a follower, right, they're following that swim bait to the boat. The fish in that swim bait, or they think it's a bait fish, that boat acts like a wall as a barrier. And that fish, so when he kills it, that bait fish goes down, almost kind of mimicking a fleeing bait fish from that bass. And that's what triggers them to bite. I think that's because it's kind of like King Cherry in the Classic because he got bit with his jerkbait. At the end of his cast, right at the boat, he would make a change of direction instead of that his straight retrieve to the boat. He'd make a change of direction, and that's how he'd get bit a bunch. I think that's super interesting.
I've actually
do that. It's like figure eighting a muskie, except you're doing it for bass.
Yeah. I've caught them on a swim jig bite when they follow it to the boat, like just changing the rod tip or dropping the rod tip down real fast when they're chasing it. And I've gotten a lot of fish to eat it that way. Yeah. So it doesn't happen all the time, but it's an extra way to get a couple bites. It's very smart. Hopefully a lot of people didn't pick up on that one, but we're here for sharing.
But I just want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in tonight. It seems like we had a pretty good audience, so thank you guys for always tuning in. We do appreciate it greatly. Wes obviously taught us a lot, not just about himself, but fishing in general. We definitely learned a bunch this episode.
For sure.
Thank you to everybody. Thank you to our sponsors for the constant support. And we got some good podcasts coming out this week. And next Monday, I actually just received a message back. We're having Jason Lambert on for next Monday.
Sweet. That'll be fun.
So next Monday, Jason Lambert, MLF, which who knows what MLF's going to be now. We could probably ask him those questions, see what's going on over there. And it's going to be a good one. But thank you, everybody, for your constant support. Thank you guys again for watching and listening. Andy, before we end it, you got anything?
I already said my piece for the night.
Yep. Bill Suck. Have a good night, everybody.